Hey guys, I want to welcome everybody to this tech talk, and more specifically on the Google for Education Plus features we have in Google Classroom today. This presentation is kind of supposed to be a kind of a conversation starter on some different things we have to kind of open up how to use Classroom, especially in the environment that we currently have coming from another one to this one. So it's kind of help to get that. If at the end of this you still have some questions, by all means reach out to me, reach out to campus admin. They can reach out to me to kind of help come by your campus to kind of talk about exactly how we can use Classroom for you. Today we're specifically going over some of the features that are part of the Education Plus aspect of it, which are the paid features that we have access to that we don't, most users don't have access to with that. A reminder for this webinar, you can put your questions in the Q&A. That way at the end I can cover those when we get done with that as I go over the basics here. That way I can know exactly what we need to cover, something you might have a question on, something that might be going on. That way we are good to go. This is also being recorded, so we'll go out later so you can go back and look. And if you didn't get a chance to make it and you're watching the recording, you can reach out to me as well. We can get kind of going. So let's get started with this. First thing we're going to go over is practice sets. When you're looking through Classroom, when you first go to your homepage, you might have noticed on the left-hand side, there's a new little tab called Resources. Resources have a couple of great tools in them that we're going to cover. The first one we're going to go over is practice sets. Practice sets are kind of like a Google Forms quiz that you can use that's like that, only it's a little more interactive. They're flashcard style assignments, so they kind of have one question comes up at a time. You work your way through that question, and students can answer that. They can auto grade, so give you data on where students are and see what they're struggling with. You can see the data per student or for the entire class to kind of look through all of that. And students get real-time feedback on what they're doing so that they know if they're on the right track. You can also leave hints for them so they can see the hints, kind of walk through those and kind of help them understand what's going on. This is more of like a practice type thing, which is why they call it practice sets, than it is like a formative assessment. This is more to help them with understanding concepts, and maybe it's for you to kind of look and see how they're doing. The idea for the hints is students can push past the I don't know. A lot of times when students don't know something, they just give up. But if you can kind of get them to using hints, it's almost like giving them the ability to start searching for stuff on their own. Only you curate those. So it kind of helps them push past that I don't know and throwing their hands up and quitting. It kind of helps them, move through that. It is a fun way to help students learn about new topics. It could be something you just intro a topic, could be something you do kind of as a check for understanding in the middle. You can add images and GIFs to the questions and the answer choices. That's pretty awesome. There are math specific characters. So there's actually a little thing on like you see on the picture there that you can actually use the math keyboard to type in equations. So you can type in those equations there that allows for you to be able to put those in specifically so they look just like they would if they were writing them down. A good new feature that just got added over the summer is you can actually take your Google Forms and import them in. So if you have a Google Forms quiz that you were using for something like this, or you have something that they create that they want to make a practice set from, you can use Google Forms to import those questions directly into practice sets. So that's kind of a cool way to get into practice sets without having to work and create them in there, or give your Google Forms a new life in the practice sets that way. Practice sets are stored in that recess tab. So they're all the resources tabs, they're always going to live there. They're not linked to a specific class, so they're always there for you to use. And you can share practice sets. So if one person creates them, you can share them with others and take turns creating practice sets to share with other people on your team. That way it's not just left up to one person to create those. Sharing is a cool way to have that. And practice sets it's a really great way to students practice some skills with some supports there for them. The hints really help them out, and then the celebrations for the progress kind of help them feel good about moving through the work and getting stuff right. So that's kind of a cool way to help them learn and for you to check for understanding for that kind of stuff. And like I said, there is a data sheet that goes with all of these where it shows like green check marks or red X's, depending on what students got right or wrong. As a class, you could look at that and drill into each student specifically to see what they got right or wrong there. So that's kind of helpful to see that. So those are practice sets. The other thing you can see um, in that resources tab are interactive questions in YouTube. This is the second tool in that resources tab. Interactive questions in YouTube um, is a cool feature. If you're familiar with a website called Ed Puzzle, it's very similar to that one, and it works to take any YouTube video and allows you to embed questions in that YouTube video. These questions can be multiple choice, checkbox, or open-ended questions. The checkbox and multiple choice will auto grade. Open-ended questions, you need to go in there and grade those responses. You can trim the video. So if you don't like the entire video and you want to use just parts of it, you can trim the video inside of there as well, only sharing the part that you like. And students at the end, they get a summary of their responses. So they will see what they got right, what they got wrong as they were working their way through it. And just like practice sets, there's class insights that give you a graphic that you can tell at a glance how all your students did on assignment, or how each individual student did that. This is one of the ways you can share videos with your students since they cannot access YouTube outside of Google Classroom. So this is the way you can share video and embed the questions in there, allowing them to have a little exercise so they're interacting with the video as opposed to just watching it. So that's another cool way to kind of use YouTube in your class to help instruction and still make sure the students get something from those videos. The next thing we're going to cover for the Google Education Plus usage in Google Classroom is originality reports. Originality reports is basically a plagiarism checker. It compares the text your students turn in to any websites by running an automatic Google search in the background every time when they turn it in. So they take the text in the entire document, search the entire internet for those corresponding words together, and then it flags and highlights any passages that match. On the right hand side there on that GIF, it shows you what passages match and even gives you the website that they match to. So it's kind of a fun way to help your students learn, because when you enable originality reports, they can actually run 3 originality reports on their own. So you're kind of teaching them good digital citizenship and checking for plagiarism and then not copying things by giving them the ability to run up to 3 originality reports on every assignment. So that's pretty fun. It allows them to run that and kind of gives them some agency on their own. We do have it turned on, and this is a relatively new feature in the past year or so. It even compares previously turned in student work if originality reports were turned on for that assignment. So if you turn these originality reports on, it actually shares all these documents with a big repository we have here for the entire district, and compares the things those students turn into previously turned in work. That's kind of a good way to make sure that students aren't using siblings' work or copying from each other and turning stuff in through different teachers, hoping that no one catches it. But again, you do have to have originality reports turned on for those documents to be sent to the large collection area. But that's kind of a good way to start teaching our students responsible technology use now, and showing them that plagiarism is something that you shouldn't really be doing, and it gives them a tool to make sure that they're following all of that stuff. I mean, those are originality reports. To turn those on and activate those, you activate those inside of the assignment you're creating. There's a little checkbox on the right-hand side that says turn on originality reports for this assignment. It does work in Google Docs, and I believe it works in Google Slides as well. It'll check the text in both of those places and run reports on that. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Gradeboard SIS export. Google Classroom does connect with our SIS, Skyward Cumulative, and if you set that up when you created your Google Classroom or you linked it, you can send grades directly to your Skyward Gradebook. The export is not set to run automatically. It is something that you actually have to click export grades yourself. That you'll see that at the top of the grading sheet right there in that top right hand corner. Um, it actually sets up a way, a pop-up that comes with it actually that allows you to checkbox what you want to send, and you choose the assignments you want sent over. It does send over the grading categories, so it will fall into the exact grading categories that you have set up in there, because hopefully you've synced those over, and your formative and summative assignments that you're adding to those categories in Classroom when you made your assignment. It will sync that directly to there. If it's not, that's okay. You can add a category inside Skyward when it moves over. Grading periods are synced as well, so it will move to the same grading period. All of that info is sent to the Skyward Gradebook, the grades, the grading period categories, all that stuff. If you've set that in a Classroom, we'll go over. This export does include any auto-graded assignments. So if you do your practice sets and auto-grade them, you do a Google Forms quiz, and that's auto-graded inside of a Google Classroom. All of those grades will export over as well when you set that export to run. Again, this is something that doesn't run automatically, so it's not going to run every night. It's not going to run until you click that Export SIS button in the top of your grades page in your Google Classroom. You select the assignments you want to sync over, and then those assignments sync. It's a pretty cool feature that kind of helps you save time, fewer manual steps of moving stuff over. It kind of gives you one spot to add in all your stuff if you use your Classroom to hold your grades. The next thing we're going to go over is something that is relatively new. It was actually added over the summer, and something that really helps streamline your classroom is Classroom student groups. This feature actually allows you to create student groups inside of your classroom for assigning items in your classwork page and on your class stream. So now you can differentiate content across different subsections of your class based on those student needs. For example, you can create a group based on reading levels. You can edit the members of those group as they move through different levels throughout the year. Small groups, you can create groups based on your small groups and then assign them things in Classroom as they move through the stations in your class. You can really set up groups any way that makes the most sense to you, and then it allows you to assign stuff directly to those students. So instead of having to create, which has happened in the past, teachers having to create a special accommodations Google Classroom that those students are part of for their assignments, you can have everybody in the same classroom and assign those assignments with accommodations. Maybe they're a little bit shorter. Maybe they have some other things in there that they have accommodations for. You can assign those assignments directly to that group of students, and it's right there for them. The best thing is only teachers and co-teachers can see the group names and the students that are in them. So they have no idea that they're in a group. They have no idea what the group's called. All they can see is that they have an assignment made for them. So that's kind of cool that you can set that stuff up, use it on the back end, and all they see is the assignments coming for them. You can update this at any time you need to. The update of the feature is there when you're creating the groups. You can move students in and out as you need to. Like I said, this is great for small groups. As they're moving around, you can have your computer there and you assign the assignments to the groups as they move through the table, so they don't have all of the stations assignments at once. They can kind of move through as they go. And really, it's the idea of groups is really to help you be able to streamline and move through and quickly add assignments to groups of students without having to go and check individual students. You can check the group, the students are already there, and the work goes out to them really quick. Something I think is pretty awesome because it kind of helps streamline some things is actually sharing classwork. So in the past, if you wanted to share classwork in a Google Classroom, you had to create a classroom and add multiple teachers into that classroom so they could then use that reuse post we talked about last time for all their assignments. Now, you can actually share your classwork with them in whatever class you're working on. So say you have a class and you're taking turns with your group, your partners that you work with, and you're creating unit 1, like right here, they're creating unit 1 coming of age. You can share all the classwork with them, and they can then export that one part in, which that'll be the next part we talk about. They can export that in. This feature allows you to share work with others. You can basically allows you to break down the work of creating all these assignments to your group as opposed to having to do it all on your own. If you're a lead teacher or a mentor teacher, you can share your classwork with your mentee and have them, be able to grab the stuff without having to work through at the beginning when they're just learning how to teach as they're learning through the stuff, and as they get better in the classroom, it kind of helps them do that. And it does share everything on that classwork page. It makes new copies of all that stuff for the teachers, so you have to worry about any of the sharing stuff. But it kind of works with that. And the sharing is right there in your classwork page. It shares all that, and that leads us to the next part, which is importing that classwork. Once you share the link with them, the teachers actually opens up, and you'll see everything in that classwork page with a checkbox on the right side. So you don't have to import everything. You can only import the parts you want directly into that Google Classroom. It works to move everything over there, pick what posts you want to copy. This creates the post in the classroom you choose with all the attachments. All the attachments are made copies of for the teacher that is importing the classwork. So there's no sharing issues, like I said, with the teachers with that. And it allows you to really streamline and work through creating stuff in classroom without having to have, like I said, that one template classroom where everybody's a co-teacher and there's no students, to really breaking down and working through different ways to break down the work so not everyone's creating everything all at once, especially if they're the same and the things like that. Um, so that's a pretty good feature to help the heavy lifting of what it is to create in classroom. The last thing we are going over is important, and it's actually new as of today. I actually was on a webinar this afternoon, and I did not know that Guardian Summaries did this. But if you're not familiar with Guardian Summaries, it's the way that parents can see what's happening in your Google Classroom. For obvious reasons, parents cannot join a Google Classroom. If you're not inside of our domain, you can't join any classrooms. They have to have an inside of our domain account, because that is a privacy concern with people outside. So it's locked into our domain. But if you go to the people page, you will see all of your students that are rostered, and in the middle it says invite guardians. Guardian summaries are what they can choose to get when they haven't been invited to be linked with their student. They have the ability to enable summaries, and they can see summaries daily, weekly, or not at all are their three choices when they accept the invite to become a guardian. And that allows them to receive a guardian summary. And new to guardian summaries is this classwork summaries page. It's basically a read-only version of your classwork page that teachers can see. They can go in and see the instructions you typed in. They can see all the attachments. They can see what their student sees. They cannot see any grades. They cannot see any other students, and they cannot see the stream page. But they can see everything in that classwork page. So if a parent really wants to keep up with what's going on with their child, you can add them as a guardian in that people page, and then it will send them an invite. They have 120 days to accept that invite, and then set up their account to receive them as they need. When adding guardians, there's some important things to think of. First, I would recommend not adding guardians unless they ask to, or as part of an email back and forth, you offer that ability to them. I would not just go in and add every guardian in your Google Classroom tomorrow because you think they all need summaries. I would ask them first, or if they reach out, ask them if they want to, before you start adding them in, because then they'll send out a bunch of emails and link stuff that they might not necessarily want. They're not going to know what it is. They're not going to know how to set it up. So it's a good idea to ask them if that's something they want to have first. Second, make sure that the email that you're adding matches in Skyward. If they want an email address that doesn't match in Skyward, they need to go through the process of changing the email in Skyward before you put it into Google Classroom and Guardian Summaries. Those two have to match, because it's a privacy and safety concern if those don't match, because we need to have the official email address that we have on record as the one that's getting the information about that child. So as like I said, with the summaries, a couple of things they do get missing work in the summary itself. They get upcoming work, and they get class activities. So all of that stuff is there for them to see. That allows them to keep up with what their student is doing, and really helps them keep track with what's going on. That is all of the paid features we have that I wanted to go over today. Um, Classroom, it's a great platform that can really help you um, change the way learning happens in your class. Um, it's really shifting. It really shifts and moves. It's advanced a lot in the 10 years it's been around. It was difficult to go over all the stuff in two short webinars, but I hope you got some tips and tricks from both of these webinars, and you're taking some stuff back with you. If you want to have a more in-depth discussion, please reach out. I'm happy to do that with you. Book some time with me when I'm on your campus. I've been sending out um, appointment slots through Google Calendar when I'm on campuses. Book some time. I can come by and we can sit down and talk really about how you want Classroom to work for you. And we can get a better discussion around that kind of stuff. If you're interested in learning about more about Google Workspace for Education in general, I actually have a Google Educator Level 1 certification um, training course that can get you information on all the Google Workspace apps. Level 1 is great for teachers to kind of get them into what exactly they can do in Google Workspace for education stuff. Um, and there's a certification test you take at the end of it. But I have access to all the questions are going to be asked and things like that, so I can help make sure that you will be successful in that. Again, reach out if you're interested in becoming a Google Level 1 educator. Um, as part of my Google Certified Trainer stuff, it's really fun for me to help teachers get that access um, for that. So now we're to questions and answers. Before we get to that, as there are no questions I see at all, I want to remind you the next Tech Talks coming up is a two-part series on Eduphoria. Eduphoria is our testing and data platform, and Connor's going to be going over both of those. The beginner session is on 10.9 and the advanced session is on 10.23. And that's really once we get into testing, that's going to help you know how to make the test, which we have some going on right now, and how to really work and look in Eduphoria to make sure it's working for the best the way you can. Cool. As we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for joining. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out and email me. And thank you for learning more about Google Classroom.